Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today is part 3 of our 3-part series on what I'm up to as a coach. And in part 1, I talked about people coming alive to the creative spark, the divine spark in them. Part 2, we talked about going beyond your psychology. And part 3, the third thing that I said to this law firm when they were asking me about working with their client was I help people create cool shit in the world. And funnily enough, that they totally got that bit. Like, that's the bit everyone kind of thinks of a coach as doing. And now most people in my world that I speak to about that get excited about that. Oh, I want to create cool shit in the world. Yeah. How do I do that? And when I explain to them that is a natural thing that starts to happen when you've come alive and when you've gone beyond your psychology, they go, oh, okay. Yeah. All right. But how do I do it? But it's interesting because I also teach in sort of spiritual communities, and often people in spiritual communities are a little wary of that. And I have a Facebook group called A Year of Creating the Impossible, #daily_creation, where people literally every day create something from nothing and share it on the Facebook group. And somebody in the group had a question when they heard me talking about this. And here's what they wrote. I have a question. I'm reading Sid Banks's book, The Missing Link, while waiting for your book, Creating the Impossible, to arrive. And today I read a paragraph that I'd like your take on. Sid writes, many people would succeed in life if their ambitions weren't so far above their abilities. I'm curious why this feels true and yet at the same time sounds opposite of what we're up to here in Creating the Impossible. I'm confident your reflection will help me see something new. So my answer came in 2 parts. The first is that creating the impossible isn't a euphemism for creating the grandiose, creating the impressive, creating the ambitious. It's just about creating what you'd really like to see in the world, whether you think it's possible or not, whether you think you can do it or not. It's simply saying you're thinking something is impossible is not a good reason to go for it or not go for it. It's just about thought and nothing to do with possibility. Now, ambition is when we try to create what we think will make us a different kind of a person, a more successful person, a more impressive person, less of a loser, somebody more likely to get laid at a party. Whatever we want to shift in our self-perception, that we think we need to change ourselves in order to think of ourselves or have other people think of us differently. So when we try to create from ambition, we wind up focused way too much on our psychology and nowhere near enough on whatever the next step in our creation is. Now this is in direct opposition to what happens when we create for the love of seeing something come into being. Those of you who are parents probably did not create your kids so that they could look after you in old age. I know that used to be a thing, but these days we usually have kids either on accident, as my kids say, or because it's just the excitement of seeing something new come into the world and learn to stand on its own 2 feet and make its way in that world. And when I was looking for example, I was responding to this person at the time of the Super Bowl, and before the Patriots lost. I'm a huge Patriots fan. You've got to know that by now. And I was actually talking about last year's Super Bowl when the Patriots came back. They were down 18 points at halftime. And everyone was like, oh, I was at a Super Bowl party and everyone was kind of patting me on the back and going, hey, it's all right. Hey, don't worry, man. You guys played great. And one guy there was quietly betting on the Patriots to come back in the second half, and he wound up making a fortune. But what was interesting to me after the game, which if you don't know about it, the Patriots came back. It was the largest comeback in Super Bowl history, is at halftime they didn't get ambitious. They didn't try to play beyond themselves. They didn't try to impress anyone. They stayed within their abilities and they followed the team's mantra, do your job. And the result was they scored 31 consecutive points as part of the largest it was the largest and most impossible turnaround in Super Bowl history. Well, in the same way, when you're not trying to create something in the world to satisfy your psychology, but to satisfy the just what seems to me to be a fundamental human urge to facilitate this creative force taking form. It's remarkable how much you can actually get done without exhausting yourself, without undue stress, without undue pressure. And so, to me, creating cool shit in the world is just fun. It's nothing to do with ambition. Now, the second thing that I pointed out was that when we take things one step at a time without feeling the need to bite off more than we can chew, do more than we're capable of doing, control more than we're actually in control of, it's amazing how far each step, one step at a time, takes us. The writer Henry David Thoreau said, "If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours." And that's the sense in which all three things that I'm up to as a coach build on one another to make for a really wonderful life. When you come alive to the magic inside you, to the magnificence inside you, to the aliveness inside you, you're inspired by possibility. When you go beyond your psychology, you're unbridled, you're unleashed. I don't know if you've got dogs, but my favorite thing when I take Sergeant Pepper on a walk is we go up into the hills and I take his lead off and I make him stay and then I say, "Okay," and he bolts. And it's the most beautiful thing to see. And it's the most beautiful thing to see when that happens with a client, when they go beyond their psychology and they just start to fly. And when you're alive to your magnificence, when you are unleashed from your psychology, creating cool shit in the world is inevitable. Have fun, learn heaps, and I'll talk to you soon.